every Wednesday at RLCC, except the last Wednesday of the month when we meet right here. All right, welcome everybody. And can I get someone to do the Pledge of Allegiance? Past President Sheila, would you do that for us?
I would be honored, President Mark. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Yes, all of us. Here we go. All right, songsters. What are we singing? Oh, very good. All right. Yes, okay, we're going to let you kick it off here.
Okay, so when your feet get so hot, you wish you're tired, choose your fireproof. But that's really what it's about, because if the asphalt gets hot, you wish you're tired, feet were fireproof. We're talking about that today.
So that was the song we sing every week for a reason that no one can remember why. But we like it, and so we do it every week. Up next, we've got Thoughts for the Day from Ms. Kelly Bowers. So, you know, she is Dr. Kelly Bowers, so this should be a good thought, and a former superintendent. So no pressure, Kelly.
So I always have lots of thoughts, but I'll share just a few. I wanted to start with two quotes that I think kind of fit this evening. One is by Jane Goodall. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. And by Roald Dahl, who some people know from like James and Vantage. Somewhere inside all of us is the power to change the world. And the reason why these thoughts came to me and kind of resonated is because right now there's a sense that people are feeling, for a variety of reasons, maybe disconnected or disillusioned or sometimes not really thrilled, and they kind of feel powerless to make change. And the reason why I think we join Rotary is because we don't want to feel powerless, and we know there's power in unity and that we can make change. If you look how polio was eradicated, I mean, that was just the sheer willpower, and uniting of people for a common cause. So individuals can make change, but it actually is more powerful and lasting change when we join and unite. And there's a lot of forces that would have us throughout society now not unite. There's a lot of things pushing us apart. And so with that thought, and in light of our speakers tonight, who are young people who went through our school system, so yes, I'm a little bit biased here, but that's okay. And thinking about them, you know, they don't let youth stop them. In fact, youth is their strength because they're not jaded. They don't have the weight of heavy things weighing on them. They can think about the future, and they know they have a long future and they can impact it. And so it's very inspiring for me that they're speaking, because what they want to do is not get overwhelmed by things like climate change and all those problems. They actually want to make a difference, and they have that power, and they're stronger because of all of your support, and they will make the world better. So that's the inspiration that I have and that I take away. And so they have inside them the power to change the world, and all of you are leading the way by example to show them what's possible. Thank you.
Okay. Absolutely. All right, on our front line, we've got Spur reporter. Joel, where are you, Joel? Way in the back. All right, so make sure he's doing his job, getting his notes taken care of. Our Spur publisher is Ted Michaels. Photographer is Christine Lusty. Christine, where's the magic camera that you use? Oh, there we go. She's got it right there in her hand. Audio visuals, Paul McCandless. Our greeter was Paul Spin. Did everyone get greeted by Paul? Yeah, good job, Paul. Paul made a special point to greet me so he would not get called out individually for not greeting the president, so I appreciate that a bunch. Our sergeants at arms, Trex and Bob. Do we have Trex or Bob? We're sergeantless. We are armless. Sergeantless at arms? Armless? I don't know, that's a complicated one of those things there. We have to look up the dictionary to see how to say that, but we don't have sergeants at arms. Our web mavens, Kathy Coyle. Our public outreach, Kelly Bowers, who just outreached just with a great thought. And our videographer is Niall. Niall, is the camera working away over there?
Beautiful.
It is. All right. Very good. Up next, introduction of visiting Rotarians and guests. First, visiting Rotarians. If you're a member of a club other than the Rotary Club of Livermore, if you would please stand up and have the Rotarian next to you introduce you. Oh, we have a favorite back here.
I am visiting from Tri-Valley Evening Rotary Club, which meets on Thursday night, and we are a Zoom club because half of our club members live out of state.
Wow. Well, welcome. We are a non-Zoom club. Yes, very good. Thank you and welcome. Okay. Any other visiting Rotarians? All right. Visitors who are not our speakers. So if you are a speaker this evening, don't stand up, but if you're a visitor, please stand up. And Rotarian who is next to our visitor, please make a point to get the basic information and introduce our visitors. All right, who are we starting with there?
Maybe I'll start.
You can start, absolutely.
Is that okay? I haven't grilled her tonight about her basic information.
Ah.
I think I know most of it.
All right, why don't you roll through why don't you tell us what you know?
How much time do you have?
Not that much.
Okay, so anyway, this is my wife Pauline, and we're all happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was good. Welcome.
You want to take a turn?
I took a turn, I turned off the microphone. Okay.
Gone, yes?
I am happy to introduce my husband, whom most of you know. This is Dave Hopkins.
Welcome.
I'd like to introduce my wife, Claudia, who is a retired school teacher, living in retired bliss at our house.
Wow. So living and bliss and at your house. That's fantastic. All right, Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. President and fellow Rotarians. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Ali, affectionately known as Dr. Ali, and she's actually an allergist, which kind of fits. And she's also a parent of students in our district. I'm hoping she'll join Rotary.
Now, Paul, could you introduce somebody who's standing next to you? Because I heard something very special happen today.
Good evening. This is Yelena Pinchenko. She's the executive director at iGate. She was our featured speaker not too long ago.
It's true.
She's been to more than 3 Rotary meetings and submitted her application to join.
Yay! Wow. Both quality and quantity. That's fantastic. So this is the second person you are sponsoring. Is that correct, Paul? Yeah, and you've been a member of our club how long? How many years? 3 months. All right. The rest of you do the math. That's what's expected. Okay, moving on here. Sheila, are you
I will
doing?
shyly step in.
Yes,
I
please.
have a squad of guests.
Very good.
Let's see, all who are hooked to Quest in some way, but we'll lure them in as the fullest of time. First, Rick and Jenny Stewart. You will hear about career players.
Yeah.
Vaughn and Sharon Purdue. And Roger and Amy Ames. And not last, but not least, my long-suffering and very sweet wife, Mary.
All right, welcome everyone. Wow, what a fantastic group you brought with you. All right, and they're your friends also, surprising. So nicely done. All right, Sheila. What are you doing here? Come on now.
So please let me introduce myself. I'm Roxana Mohammed. I'm the principal of Livermore High School. And this is Carla Pasquale. She is my executive assistant.
Yeah. You know what?
I'm so sorry, that should have been me. Huh?
Yeah, it should have been she until you got the idea of the Rotarian. But you know what? Roxana's been here more than 3 times, you know, Sheila. What you could ask her about.
Yeah,
you should do that. All right, here we go. Who's up next?
Who's supposed to send me an application?
Oh, we will get that done. All right.
You know where I work.
Yeah, okay. Do we have Roxana's email? Yeah. We do? Okay, our membership chair, I hear, being enthusiastically following up on that. Fantastic. Yes, next.
So Mark, I'm going to break protocol here a little bit,
Yes.
since I'm not a Rotarian, but I've just been introduced. I'd like to also introduce the father of one of our guest speakers tonight. This is Prem Krishna Natarjan, who is the father of four.
Welcome. Joel.
President Mark,
Yes.
fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce once again a special education teacher of 36 years who retired happily about 10 years ago. My wife, Mary Martha.
Welcome.
Rotarian, I would like to introduce my wife, Adele.
You're going to pay for that later. Yes, welcome. All right, Paul. Who do you have?
President Mark and fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce my wife, Kathy, who's still gainfully employed, thank God.
Well, you know, Paul, you know why that is because you ranch for a living. So she has to keep working. Otherwise, you'll starve. All right, moving on.
Rotarians and guests, it's my honor and
You're making us misty-eyed.
delight to introduce my beautiful wife, Madeline.
Hello. Welcome.
President Mark and fellow Rotarians and guests, I would like to introduce my wife of 42 years, who is not suffering as far as I can tell, but I'll have to check with Jay later on that, Linda Kubiak.
Welcome.
And fellow Rotarians, I'm very happy to have with me tonight my wife, Jane.
All right, welcome. Oh my goodness, a big crew tonight. Is there anybody else who we did not introduce here at this point? Uh-oh. Oh, one more back there. Sheila, can you get that man a microphone?
I'd like to raise a point of order.
Oh, one of those. Yes.
We did not properly greet the visiting Rotarian.
That is true. We should do that by name.
Yes, we need to do that. So.
Okay. I agree. We will do. All right. So do we want to have the visiting Rotarian stand back up first? Okay. And the person who introduced them, because the problem is the Rotarian who's introducing the visiting Rotarian and said, should end it with, and this is, and give the name. Yeah, so just that last line. So
once again, I will introduce my wife, Bonnie.
hello, Bonnie. There we go. That was better. Okay, well, we were looking for progress, not perfection. We were making a step in that direction. All right, moving on. Announcements. Oh, I'm going to pull rank here. This item, while it could theoretically be used for a wide variety of recreational activities, I believe is a spatula. And it was left at the RLCC when we last had our potluck. So is anyone missing a spatula that looks like this. Joel, is this your spatula or do you?
But you could auction it off.
I could auction a used spatula.
I will claim it.
Ah, it is Niall's spatula. Well, Niall, you know, seems like, you know, there's an opportunity here. What would you think would be an appropriate gift back to the club or a related Rotarian activity in return for such a pristine, very high quality, and now clean spatula?
Okay,
$20.
Boy, you might not get your spatula back, Niall.
there we go.
Yes.
Before I do that, I made the flan for that meeting, and there's never any left, and I'm very proud of it, and I get lots of compliments on it. So,
nice flaunting. Yes, well done. You were all well flawned at that. Very well.
So I'll contribute $10 for that.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Yes. All right. Next on our announcements here. What's up? Ah, you know what? It's no longer coming soon. It came, it went, it conquered. So Bob, tell us a little bit about what happened this last Saturday.
Well, first of all, who all was there? Please raise their hands. Okay, so who had a good time? Raise their hands. Okay, I'd like all the crab feed committee members to stand up.
Thank you.
And the reason you had a good time was because of these folks. They worked really hard. And we were sailing into a stiff wind this year. It turned out the crab cost $4,000 more than last year. But our numbers aren't that bad. We took in a total income of $70,000. Our expenses were $36,000, and we've made at least $34,000.
All right.
And our treasurer tells me, we're probably going to make more than that, but he's still doing the book. He's so conservative.
Well, he likes to actually have the money before he, you know, counts it.
Well, yes.
Yeah, there's that.
So anyway, the crab feed committee is going to celebrate all by themselves at JMC Cellars tomorrow. So crab feed guys, be there at 5 o'clock, and then afterwards we're going to go to Terra Via for dinner. So,
well done. All right, a big round of applause for Bob in particular, our fearless leader on the crab feed. Hey, hey. And for the crab feed committee. All right, Yvonne, we are down to it. This D-Day is this weekend, so tell us what's coming.
Okay. For all of you host families, you should have gotten an email that you had a link where you could download the name of your student. We've been having some fun, let's call it fun, with the electronics. But, so if you didn't download that, please get a hold of me. I also today sent an email out for everybody who had signed up for the potluck. If you want to check what it was you signed up for or fill in the blanks here, I'm just going to leave this clipboard up here on the counter as opposed to trying to get the thing to go around, I think. But the bottom line here is, if you're a driver, you're going to show up and be ready to leave with Pat McMiniman by 7:30 from downtown at the Starbucks by Ace Hardware. If you are a host family, you will pick up your student at about 2:30 at Wood Family Vineyards. And we have the potluck Saturday night, 5:30. And then the next morning, I think it's 10 o'clock. Is that right, Paul? I don't have my...
Yep, we're at the top of the dam.
We meet at the dam, and we try to condense into as few cars as possible to make the trip up over the hill to the ranch. And with that, I think I have covered everything I can think of. If you have any questions. Okay. Oh, the potluck. Yes, is that Alden Lane, as usual. So.
And are other Rotarians invited to the potluck?
Absolutely.
Other Rotarians?
Anybody who wants to come to the potluck is welcome to come. In fact, we have about 60 people signed up. And only half of them are really from hosting families. The rest are individuals who are just going to come party with us and have fun listening to the students.
Very good. All right, so our takeaways this evening are, is if you signed up to host a family, to drive, or to otherwise participate, you should have gotten an email this week. Now, I was one of the lucky ones who didn't, because it goes through some screening process about, is it appropriate to send an email to this person? And I failed that test, but Yvonne fixed that. So if you have not gotten your email, please reach out to Yvonne. It's way more fun now than it is early Saturday morning as you're scrambling to try and find that non-existent email. Okay, that's not the time to be doing this. All right, thank you all. Thank you, Yvonne.
By the way, I sent a test on my first email to my Comcast account, and it flunked me there too, so don't take it personally.
I did, but I'll know that I'm in good company. All right, up next. All right. Ooh. Next week we have Matt Fusi giving us an LARPD update, and I have some inside information that there's going to be some pretty cool stuff we're going to talk about the future of the district. So if you've been watching the newspaper and little rumblings going on there, you may know a little already. But fun things are coming, and great, interesting things about what's going on and what's to come next on LARPD. So that one I would not miss, and it's right at the LARPD facility, RLCC, at 4444 East Avenue, noon on Wednesday. So y'all should know how to get there. All right, and this week, today's speakers, we have a couple, and they're going to talk about heat maps, and one done specifically for us. All right, who's giving our introduction? Yes, sir. If you would wander on up and kick us off, this is going to be amazing. All right.
So it's my pleasure to introduce the speakers today. Today, there are serious environmental, political, and social threats facing us all. The solutions are difficult and multi-generational. As Rotarians, we strive to address these issues that in our lifetimes, we will not have to deal with the greatest impact, nor will we be able to solve them. The consequences and their solutions will fall mostly on our children, our grandchildren, and beyond. The presentation you'll hear next gives me great hope that support by Rotary, the Quest Science Center, and other like-minded service organizations is helping to prepare the next generations to address these systemic threats. So both speakers today, Shrish and Tarak, are graduating Livermore seniors who have decided to major in environmental sciences. They are both currently deciding which of the most prestigious universities in the country they will attend. It is my great honor to befriend and work with them both. Please.
Okay. Hello, Rotarians. How's everybody doing? Good. So, as Don said, my name is Shrish Krishna, and this is Tarak Sriram. We are graduating seniors at Livermore High School, and we're also interns of the Tri-Valley Youth Climate Action Program. So, we are a local youth organization in Livermore that are focused on fighting climate change through direct climate action initiatives that impact the community. We're here today to present one of our projects, but before we get into that, I'd like to give you guys a little information on how we got here today. It all started with the Livermore Youth Climate Summit in September 9th of 2023. We hosted this event, and it had over 200 students from around the Tri-Valley from over 12 different schools attend. It was a great time, and we had a lot of learning about climate change and climate action and how the youth can get involved. After the summit, some of us had the idea of why stop now? It was actually Tarak who said that to an interviewer about why stop now, right? We hosted this amazing summit, so why should we stop now? And why should we not just continue with actual climate action initiatives? That led to the founding of the Tri-Valley Youth Climate Action Program. We had 3 main goals. First, enhancing youth awareness and understanding of climate change. Second, promoting meaningful science-based climate action for a better future. And finally, creating a united community of like-minded youth. TVYCAP has done a lot of things for the community over the past 2 years, from hosting clothing swaps that have gathered over 800 pounds of clothing, saving hundreds and thousands of gallons of water, and waste auditing our local high schools to identify contamination in our waste streams and limit the amount of trash that goes to the wrong landfills. And finally, before we move on to the project that we're going to be presenting today, we want to give a big shout out to Quest Science Center, our parent organization that made all this possible. Thank you. So, the project we're here today to present is the heat mapping of the Tri-Valley. Let's get started.
Okay, so on the screen right now is a plot from NOAA showing the global average surface temperature. There's data from 1880 all the way to essentially present day. But one of the things that I'd like to point out on this graph is around 1980, you start to see a rapid increase in the global average surface temperature. And this shows global warming. So what is heat mapping? Heat mapping is a procedure that just measures the air temperature variation across different areas. In our scenario, we measured the air temperature variation in Tri-Valley cities, including Tracy, Pleasanton, and Livermore. The goal was to identify urban heat islands, which are urban areas that are hotter than their surroundings and are caused entirely by human activities. So why is this important? Why should we care? Urban heat islands actually have many negative effects. Some of them include higher energy use, increased emissions, poorer air quality, and they can even lead to health risks. So we defined goals for our project. The first one was to identify the areas that are most vulnerable to urban heat island effects. The second one was to develop low-cost temperature sensors and a procedure for citizen scientists to use globally. And the third goal was to provide actionable insights to inform the city of Livermore and its decisions. On the screen right now is an excerpt from the city of Livermore's Climate Action Plan. And the excerpt just goes over different milestones that the city has to both address heat vulnerability and take action to mitigate the effect of urban heat islands on vulnerable citizens. So we see our role in this process as to provide the city with data so that they can make actionable decisions to mitigate the effect of these urban heat islands. We measure temperature variations in the cities in 3 different ways. The first one was through NASA's open source Landsat data. The second one being fixed sensors that we placed in strategic locations across the city. And the third one being mobile sensors, which we mounted on top of cars and drove around to generate temperature maps. On the screen right now are infrared satellite images. So the map on the left is a map of surface temperature in Livermore. The red areas represent the hotter parts of the city, while the blue areas represent the cooler parts. And on the right side, we see a vegetation map. So the dark green areas represent areas with high vegetation, and the light brown areas represent areas with little to no vegetation. Both of these images are zoomed into a part of the city that we like to call the Livermore Triangle, and it's created by 3 main roads that you guys will recognize. So the first one is Railroad Avenue, Marietta Boulevard, and North Livermore. So when we look at these 2 maps, we can actually make some correlations. On the left side, when you get that laser pointer? Oh, don't have it on us. But the blue area on the left map over there, left map, Trish. Oh. Yeah, there we go. He's a bit sick today, but okay. And then, yeah, the circled area, so that's actually Main Nissan Park, and the vegetation, thank you, Rick. The vegetation has a clear correlation that causes that part of the city to be cooler. And we chose to dive into those areas using the fixed sensors and mobile sensors that we developed. So first off, the fixed sensors. I'm gonna hold one up so you guys can take a look at it. This is what it looks like. This great thing around it is just like a shade, but inside you can see that tiny gray thing. That's the sensor in there. We place around 30 of these sensors in different locations across the city. Most of them were just in the backyards of student interns, but we did try to cover as much of the city as we could. Some of the ones that I'd like to point out at notable locations are, the image actually shows over there, one at Civic Center Library, there's one at Rincon Library, there's one in Quest Plaza, which is in the downtown area, and then there's one in the labs too. So we have a lot of data that was gathered through these fixed sensors, and when we try to analyze it, this is the type of plot that we get. So all those lines on top actually represent data from each of those fixed sensors, and then the line on the bottom represents the wind speed for that day. So this is a 24-hour snapshot of September 3rd and the data that we gathered from that day. And I'd like to point out a couple of things on this plot over here. So as we go through the plot, we start to see the temperature rising at around 7 a.m. and that's around the time of sunrise. And then as we go throughout the day, temperature peaks at around 5 o'clock and then starts to cool down at sunset. That gray block on the screen is actually an hour between 9:30 and 10:30 when we did a run with the mobile sensors, which I'll talk about soon. But the significant part of this plot is that there's a variation between different locations of the city, and that variation just proves that the city is cooling at different rates, and that proves that local heat islands are forming. Okay, so now on to our mobile sensors. Trish, do you want to hold one of those up? Yeah, that right there. That's our Generation 1 mobile sensor. And there's a couple parts on there that I'd like to point out. There's a GPS, data logger, and battery on the top. And inside the tube over there is the actual temperature sensor, and it's held up by a string. So as wind passes through that tube, the temperature sensor captures a snapshot of things like the temperature, humidity, and the location. And at every 1 second interval, we're able to see how hot that area was. And the suction cups on the bottom allow us to mount these sensors on top of cars. So we drove around the city and were able to generate a heat map. These are some pictures from one of the nights that we did these temperature runs. So there were students from 3 cities that were involved, from 3 high schools too. And we placed each one of those sensors on top of 5 cars, divided the city up, and drove for an hour around those areas, gathering data. And after an hour driving, this is what we get. So over 16,000 data points plotted on a map of Livermore here. Like I said, 5 different cars, 5 different routes. For example, I took upon the northwest region of the city. I drove up to Las Positas, the airport, and then came back down to the downtown area. And 4 different drivers did the same thing with their portion of the city. A couple things that I'd like to point out on this graph is the first one being the red circle in the middle. So that red circle represents the hottest part of the city. And let me see if I can point there. That thing right there. So that is the hottest point of the city. It's directly in the middle of downtown area, which has a lot of asphalt, concrete, and not as much vegetation. And the next thing I want to point out is this blue circle towards the bottom right-hand corner over there, and that represents the lowest temperature point of the city. And that's because that area has a lot of open space, a lot more vegetation. And the surprising thing was that the difference between those 2 points was 14 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just an absolute immense amount, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of different things we can dive into on that temperature map over there. But here are 2 streets that we particularly found interesting. So the first one up top is the Rincon Library and May Nissan Park area. And the bottom one is Charlotte Way, which is right off of East Avenue. So back on the top roads by Rincon Library, we can actually see over there when we drove by the parking lot how it's much redder, which means it's hotter than the rest of the map. And when we look at a picture of the roads next to Rincon Library, we see that it's very wide and doesn't have much vegetation across the roads. But when we take a look at Charlotte Way, which is a much newer part of the city, the roads are much narrower. We get to see planters along the way and trees along the way, which definitely contribute to the cooling. And these trees and roads, they do end up making a difference.
So we've done some great things with this project over the past year, and looking forward, we have some even greater things coming up. First, now that we have this heat mapping process down, we're going to be working closer with the city so we can provide them data so they can use that data to mitigate the issues that they've seen regarding heat around the city. So this is a picture of a meeting that we had recently with Trisha Ponto, the city sustainability manager, and also Mr. Spence. He's right there. So we had a great meeting and we talked a lot about what they've seen in the city regarding heat. And we also talked about how our data can help them fix these issues, because the big issue here is that there's not enough data there's not enough data for the city to put these solutions that they have in place, like community relief centers, etc. We're also building better sensors. This is our second generation sensor. This one costs around $250, and the one I'm holding in my hand, the second generation, costs around $50 to build. It's also handheld, so we can use this and walk around schoolyards or tiny parts of the city to get specific data on individual parts of the city. And it's a lot nicer. We've been using this for the past few days, past few weeks, and there's actually an image of us heat mapping Livermore High School. So we found that some areas of Livermore High School are hotter than other areas, and now maybe we can work with Ms. Mohammed to add more trees somewhere or add some shade structures. And finally, we are presenting this project nationally. This is a picture of us at Chicago. I have much shorter hair in that picture, but still me. And we were at Chicago presenting this project, and we were talking with groups around the nation about how they can use these sensors that we've built to heat map their own urban areas. A big goal of this project is to empower citizen scientists around the world, right? This can't just stay in Livermore. This could spread around the world. If someone in Tennessee wants to heat map their own city, they can do it. And we built this whole sensor for them to build by themselves. So, to end this off, I'd like to show you, and one more thing. We'll be presenting this heat mapping project at the Tri-Valley Innovation Fair on April 12th. I'd highly recommend all of you, if you're interested, to show up to the Innovation Fair to see this project and also everything else that the Tri-Valley Youth Climate Action Program has been working on for the past few months. We've been doing some great work on different projects, and we're really excited to show the world. So I hope to see a lot of you there. Thank you. Now, I'd like to end with one last picture. This is the TV Whitecap team this year. It's over 50 students big and is represented by over 7 different high schools. We've grown a lot over these past 2 years, and we're really excited to have this opportunity to present in front of the Rotary today. We really look forward to continuing to update you all on our projects and the impact that we're giving to the community. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, what fantastic data that you have there. Can you for a quick second just click back to the picture that showed Rincon and Charlotte as you're in the heat map there? So there we go. So, you know, if you're interested in what you can do as a career, so the lower picture there is part of the South Livermore specific plan. Those streets are 52% of the paving of a typical residential street, so or 48% less asphalt than they are in other areas of the city. The trees are 5.2 times the requirement in other parts of the city. And those two things together lower the temperature 14 degrees. So the importance of regulatory intervention on our built environment are dramatic. And just to give you a sense, that was sort of work done by a young planner who was in his late 20s at that particular time. So the fact is, you can make changes. That might have been me. But that was the concept we were thinking of, shading rather than lowering temperature as the big push, and of reducing the amount of urban runoff. Those were the things that were driving that thinking. But you can see how these things all tie together. Urban runoff, shading, heat islands, air movement, essentially. The houses in that have wide overhangs over them to essentially shade their sidewalls. There's a bunch of things in that from a quarter of a century ago. So the fact that you're going to be studying these things, there are a lot of very interesting on-the-ground, real-life stuff that you'll have the chance to make a huge difference for us moving forward. This is fantastic information. Well done. Right here, we'll do it back there to start. Who's got a microphone?
I do. I would first like to thank the speakers, Trish and Tarak. That was a tremendously inspiring presentation. And I've got a lump in my throat. I am proud to know you both. The question I have is, now that you've done this, where do you hope this will all lead? What do you see as the next steps and things to achieve from this?
There's a lot of next steps that we have. The first one being improving the Generation 2 sensor, going into specific areas like parks. We've already done schools, but just getting more data so that the city has more data to work with. We also want to attend more conferences so that we can spread the word about our project.
Yeah, one of our overarching goals is to spread this technology to more cities and more towns, nationally and also internationally. There are people from LA, there are people from New York, there's people from Tennessee. They're all talking to us at this conference in Chicago, and we're hoping to build those connections with them and give them give them their chance to heat map their own urban areas.
Okay, go ahead.
Right here.
So I'm curious, because you are doing this nationally, how do you take geography into account? Because of course here we're in a valley, you've got leeward and windward, you've got the way that the valley is shaped and the way the wind goes through. So as you apply that to other geographies, how does that affect your heat mapping?
I think the satellite data helps a lot with that because it allows us to look at areas on a much larger scale. And then once we are able to find some correlations and see some patterns, we can use the sensors that we have to dive a little bit deeper into those specifics and seeing how the heat actually has an impact.
Thank you all so much. Okay, thank you guys so much. It was a great presentation. I was just wondering, so that's a pretty impressive spread you had with that 14-degree delta between various parts of the city. My questions are, what time of year, like what season was that done in? And do you expect, or can you make any predictions, like is that delta widens during certain, like during the summertime versus wintertime? I just wanted to kind of see how you guys, if it was like, how you did your study and how you plan on accounting for different seasonal variations.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this heat map was done on September 3rd. We spent the whole summer of 2024 building these mobile sensors, our first generation, and then we took them out on the streets on September, October, and did heat maps when the wind was low to almost non-existent, so that these urban heat islands would form. Now that we have these second generation sensors and we're building more, about like 20 of them, we're going to be able to do these heat maps in the winter, we're going to be able to do them in the spring, the summer, and then also in the fall again of 2025. Speaking now, I would expect that difference to increase in the summer maybe, but that's what we're doing, right? We're collecting this data so that the city can be more informed and all of us can be more informed too. The whole problem here is that there's a lack of data for us to make actionable change, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to collect the data.
We have 1 minute,
Thank you. Yeah, there seems to be some opposing forces here. I had a conversation recently with my insurance guy, and I have a lot of trees around my house, and that presents a fire hazard. You know, we've been told mulch your gardens because it reduces the use of water. Well, now wood mulch near your house is a fire hazard. We've been told plant trees because they shade your house and keep your cooling and heating bills lower, but now that's a fire hazard. And I applaud what you're doing, I really do. It's just that society needs to come to some sort of conclusion here.
Yeah, that's definitely a great statement. And I will say that this issue is really complex and there's a lot of different angles to it, right? You're right, if we plant trees, that could be a fire hazard. But if we don't plant trees, then that area gets hotter. It's a really complex issue, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring data into the issue so that we can be a little more informed. But if we can't plant trees, one workaround to that would be other forms of reducing heat issues in urban areas. This could be things like community relief centers, right? If you're feeling very hot in a certain area, your house doesn't have AC, you could go to the closest community relief center near you. They would have fans there, they would have coolers there, they would have misters there, things like that. Another thing we can do is paint our roofs white, paint our roads white, and that will reflect a lot of the sun instead of absorbing that heat from the sun into our ground and heating up everything. So trees would be great, but there's a lot of workarounds to issues like that, especially because we live in California, it's wildfire express here, so yeah.
Brilliant presentation, guys. And it's simple, it's very